Hi there YouTubers, welcome back to my channel, Workshop Fun. Well, today I'd like to post the final update on my air compressor. It's all together now and going lovely. The last video that I posted, I believe I was waiting for the pulley to arrive, and then once the pulley for the motor arrived, I was then able to take the measurements that I needed for the A section belts. The last compressor head that I had on this, which sadly died, was a big old antique refrigerator pump, and it took B section belts, and the compressor used B52 belts. Now this compressor head is even though it can put out more CFM than the old one, it's actually physically smaller, and so is its front pulley. So that totally changed the ratios that I needed, and also the belts that it takes is not B section, it's A section. So now I have two belts that are A60, so 60 inch. Excuse me. So what I ended up having to do is, to power this thing, I had to change the diameter of the motor's main pulley and also make it an A section. But the diameter of the motor's pulley has increased, and it is now 6.25 inches, and that, along with the compressor head's pulley, spins the compressor head at 850 RPM, and this compressor head, the max speed is meant to be no more than 900, so that's pretty darn good actually. Very happy with that. And the other thing that had to change too is, which was funny, I had already just changed it, but I had to of course change the piping again, so I had to order more copper pipe and get that in, and order a few more fittings again, and then I had to reflange some pipes and fit them all and make sure they're all right. I'll just take you over and show you what I did. So one big step was I had to remake the main pipe. So that's it there. Comes all the way down and up into this brass bit that I had on the other compressor head, and then into this right angle and straight into the condenser that I made. So that was a little bit of a nuisance having to change it all, but you know, that's what you get. It's just the way things go sometimes. The other thing I've done since last speaking to everybody on YouTube is I did a bit more work on my water trap. Now this I bought off AliExpress, and it was a water and oil trap with a regulator built onto it. Now really you shouldn't have a regulator on this side of the compressor. Usually they go after the air has come from the compressor head into the tank, and then after that they come out here. This is where your regulator usually is. So the regulator doesn't take too kindly to being on the side of the compressor head before it goes into the tank. So anyway, I got rid of the regulator altogether, and I set this up carefully in my lathe and bored out all the inners of the regulator's, what would you say, plumbing I guess, but it all restricts airflow. So the only thing I want this to do is be a moisture trap. So I safely bored this out. Like, I didn't bore out so much meat that it's weak. It's still got tons and tons of meat, but I bored in here out to the same inner diameter as the copper pipe, so it's not restricting airflow, and same with this one, made it so it's not restricting the airflow. And then I also, like I said, down in this area here underneath this big brass bung that I've put on, there was a whole ton of alloy with a couple of fine passages where the regulator used to have a spring in there that would compress up and shut off the regulator given the set pressure that you'd have. So I bored all that out, so it's just more or less passing through now. And once again, I left a ton of meat in there though, because I don't want this thing to be unsafe, so there's still a ton of meat in there to keep this all safe and strong. So that was a great little modification, because when I first started this compressor, I found this was slightly restricting the airflow. Now the question is does it still catch moisture? And yes, I can testify that it does. It catches a ton of moisture and automatically drips it out still, or splashes it out. Works really well. This whole condenser system works really well. Very, very pleased with it actually. What I've also done too is, since my last YouTube video, is this, which is a transmission cooler, which is acting as a condenser. This used to, if you see these stainless steel pegs, this used to sit flush with the belt guard. So I had this, now sits further out, so I had to create these extensions, and it's worked out well because of course I'm getting more airflow between the condenser and the compressor head now. So yeah, it's overall not getting as much heat from the compressor head, and the compressor head is still also drawing air through and passing it through here, which it actually draws the air through. The other refrigerator compressor didn't have a pulley on it that would draw air. It was just a straight pulley, whereas this one is got the fins which make up the arms of the pulley, so to speak, and they act like a fan to cool the compressor head. So it's great because it's also pulling air in past this as well. So yeah, and that's why it's better that there's a bigger air gap too there, so the hot air from this, not all of it, will be going straight onto the compressor head. So that all works out good. Okay, the big thing that was holding me up last time I spoke on YouTube was this big new pulley. This is, you can see it's quite big. It's 6.5 inches in diameter. The thing weighs 2.5 kgs. And the dearest part about buying this pulley was the shipping, because it's cast iron and I had to get this in from China, good old China, and it's been well made. It was very expensive, but still a lot cheaper than what I can get it here for in New Zealand. In actual fact, I was actually having a hard time finding one of these in New Zealand at all, because my electric motor's diameter, the shaft's diameter is 28.5 mil, the imperial version. It's the imperial version of 28.5, and I've gone and forgotten that, but it's big, and it's quite hard to find the pulley, the correct diameter pulley with that shaft size here in New Zealand, which within a reasonable price. Like, I think it was going to be like horrendous buying that here. So I got this on Ali, cast iron, so great quality, should last forever, and you can tell it's been well balanced. You can see the drilling the drilled holes in it to balance it, and where the V-belt goes. And yeah, runs beautifully and smoothly, so no complaints there. Now, so that all arrived, and then I was able to take the measurements and order the belts. And while that was happening, I also made this right angle and welded that onto the top of the air, the motor's supports on top of the air tank, and threaded them with a 12.5 or 12.25, I can't remember, but coarse 12mm thread, and that now tensions the motor for me, so it takes a lot of work away from tensioning this motor, because I'm not exaggerating when I say this motor probably weighs about 70 kgs. It is incredibly heavy. This is all cast iron, and the thing that is really amazing about this motor is it's a 3 horsepower, but this is something that you won't see on the modern motors too often. This is 3 horsepower rated continuous, so this can continuously run at 3 horsepower and not overheat. That's pretty damn cool. Like, most electric motors have a duty cycle now and they have to rest. This, it can go all day at 3 horsepower, no worries, won't worry it. So brilliant. Okay, what else? I'll come around here. So just down here, I put in an hour meter, so I know when I have to service the compressor head and change the oil. I'm still on the first oil change, of course. I got to get up to 50 hours and then I change the oil on the good old compressor head. Now, the one thing, I'll just come back around here. The one thing I have noticed is, boy, the power of this thing. It is incredibly powerful. Very, very aggressive. I'm super happy with this thing. And it refills the tank very quick. So from 80 pound to 150 pound, it takes about 30 seconds to fill the tank back up, which is very, very quick. I haven't had an air compressor this quick before. And the other thing that is really impressive is the volume of air that it can keep going out constantly is amazing. It's very cool having the 3-cylinder. I've never owned a 3-cylinder air compressor until now, and I got no regrets in buying this compressor head and changing it out. I was humming and hawing when the refrigerator one died, because I sort of wanted to keep as much as the original compressor as I could, given the fact that the guy who made this compressor has now died, sadly. I didn't want to take too much of his character away from it. Also, I didn't know how much time and money and effort was going to be involved in restoring that old compressor head, and just comes down to, is it worth it or not? And for me, while I'm doing up the caravan, no, it wasn't. It's just going to be too much. So for me, I just went with the new compressor head and spent the time and had to change the mountings on the air tank, and no welding directly on the tank, by the way. Definitely didn't do anything like that. But the supports on the air tank, I had to weld in some plates on that and change that up a bit so the new compressor head could mount on the top of the air tank. So that's all done. And I'm very happy though, I was able to keep the guy's original belt guard with changing that pulley on the motor. I was wondering if I was going to be able to keep the belt guard, and I really did want to, because it's got a lot of character, this, and it looks pretty cool and vintagey. So all I ended up having to do was I chopped off a bit of plate that came from here down to here. I chopped that off so it wouldn't rub on the pulley, and lifted this peg here. Used to weld straight onto, was welded straight onto the plate here. So this here though needed to lift up a tiny bit. So I made up these two arms and then welded them onto the peg, and then I also welded welded the two arms onto the belt guard in this elevated position. Then the only thing I had to do after that was change the hole underneath here. So I was able to file out the hole diameter, and then I turned around and carefully soldered on a washer, and then that realigned the hole. So now the belt guard aligns up here without scraping the pulley at all. You might actually notice I accidentally, when I was aligning this originally, I accidentally nicked the belt guard on the pulley just briefly. A little bit of green paint on it that I still got to clean off at some point. Anyway, now I'm sure what a lot of people have been waiting for is to see this thing fire up. So I'll turn on the tap here. Right. So I'll let the air out of the tank so the motor will fire up. This is just my fine blower, so it doesn't let out as much air as some of the other ones I got, but still works good. Now it should fire up soon. There we go. Runs beautifully, doesn't it? Very happy with that compressor head and the motor and everything. Now this is also completely cold. I haven't used it today. So first time running. There you go. Yeah, so yeah, that's about all with this one. But if you got any questions, feel free to ask me, and I hope everybody's having a nice day. Thank you very much. Bye.